Hi BookTube, it's Amy. We've made it to Friday again, and I'm here with a Friday Reads. I've got a glass of white wine here. Not usually a white wine drinker. Usually I go for the red wine, but every once in a while the white and the fact that you chill it just sort of hits the spot here. So, on to the books. I started reading the other night Elton John's autobiography, Me, which came out last year in 2019, and there's the paperback being released later this year. I ended up purchasing this because a friend of mine talked about wanting to read it, and I often lend her books, and I was poking around online and saw that it was on sale for $26, the price of the paperback that's yet to be released. And so I thought, I saw Rocket Man when it came out last year. I like Elton John fairly well. Why don't I pick it up? And I'm quite enjoying it so far, just about 100 pages in, learning about his upbringing in England and how he got started in his career. And I do have to say that the Rocket Man movie that came out last year seems fairly accurate up until this point. There are a few minor things that were tweaked for that film, obviously for artistic reasons, but overall I'm liking this one so far. And then I had the good fortune of going into Book Bazaar earlier this week over my lunch break when I was out running some errands, and I came across a 2-volume set of the journals of Dorothy Wordsworth, the sister, of course, of poet William Wordsworth. And it was just last week, about a week ago, that I was musing and wondering whether the journals of Dorothy had ever been published. And someone was kind enough in the comment section of my discussion video on the Friends, that joint biography of Wordsworth and Coleridge, to let me know that they had in fact been published and that there is a more recent printing available. And so I thought I might be buying that, but then I stumbled across this 2-volume cloth blue set from the, let me just double check, from the 1950s. So this is first edition 1941, and this is a 1952 printing, and I've just read a couple of her journal entries so far. It's not the sort of thing you'd read in a large chunk, simply for the reason that she wasn't writing for publication, but she was writing to be read, and I think that's important to note. She was writing this journal so that her brother William could read it, and so that her friends could read it. It was a way of recording what the days were like, how things had been, for the benefit of sharing the days and the experiences with her friends. And I'm just noticing in these first few entries from 1798, the journal that she wrote at Alfoxden, she is very focused on nature, on what the day was like, on the walks that she took with her brother and by herself at times. And so this will be very interesting to just dip into every now and then, and I'm sure as I read on, certain famous people will start to appear, making it even more interesting. And then I also started reading a book that came for me in the mail yesterday, and this is Ventures in Book Collecting from 1923 by William Harris Arnolds. And I ordered it from a cute little bookstore out in British Columbia. I've never ordered from them before, but it came with this great little card inside that I'm using as a bookmark. So they are called Antiquarious Booksellers, thousands of items listed only on our website, most with images, better quality books, secondhand to antiquarian, vintage paperbacks and magazines, ephemera, paper collectibles, militaria, autographs, photographs, postcards, documents, newspapers, etc. Quality materials always sought, trades considered. Located in Falkland, BC. So that's quite an attractive advertisement. I think they've caught my attention, especially the way this book was packaged. You can usually tell a good used bookseller from a bad used bookseller. The booksellers who care about the books they're selling usually package them very nicely. So you open it up and the book is wrapped in a plastic film, nicely taped, little bit of bubble wrap, nice package. Whereas, you know, some of the books you buy online are just sort of thrown into any old bubble mailer and they show up bumped or torn or stained or whatever. I've had books show up, you know, sent in paper packages and soaked with rain. And good booksellers like this Antiquarius booksellers wrap their books nicely and make sure they arrive in good condition. And I mean, exactly as described, not the best condition book, but for almost 100-year-old book, it's looking pretty good. We've got somebody's signature in the front, E.H. Everett, 1927. I'm going to assume this is either when they read the book or when they received the book. And we've got this nice frontispiece of the author here with his dramatic mustache. And it turns out that William Harris Arnold was a bookseller and book collector in America. And he had been selling new books or contemporary books for his time. But in the 1890s, I believe it was, he ended up stumbling across a bookseller's catalog and becoming quite interested in a single leaf from a copy of the Canterbury Tales. And he went ahead, sent out for that, bought it, and there began his addiction. And he amassed quite a large collection of English and American authors, a very vast collection. But at a certain point in, I think it was 1901 or 1903 or something like that, he did sell the bulk of his collection and rather began to focus on just a select number of authors, one of them being Tennyson. And he seems to have had some interest in the Romantic poets, which is why I found here in chapter 2 a discussion of Coleridge and Wordsworth and Lamb and several books that were owned by these authors that came into his possession. And here we have his page from the first edition of the Canterbury Tales reproduced here, and that is the piece that sprung him on his journey of collecting. And I've been, if you've been watching my channel, you know that in the past 6 months or so, well, really 8 months now, because we're here almost in September. Since about January, I've really gotten into buying and reading these books from around about the 1920s about collectors. And there seems to have been like a whole subgenre of these books written by collectors, and they're part memoir, part almost instruction manual about how to go about collecting. And I immensely enjoy them. And so this is my latest acquisition here. No dust jacket, of course. I would hardly expect a 100-year-old dust jacket to be available for what I paid for that. I think it was about $20 or $25 plus the shipping, so not unreasonable at all. So that is what I'm up to with my reading. I am of course still picking my way through Wordsworth's The Major Works and Coleridge's The Major Works. I did read a significant portion of Coleridge's Biographia Literaria, which is his sort of response to Wordsworth's introduction to the second and third editions of Lyrical Ballads, where Wordsworth talks about what poetry is and isn't. And I guess Coleridge wanted to respond to this conversation about what poetry is, what makes a good poet, what makes good poetry. And so he wrote this partly biographical work and partly just sort of meandering explanatory piece touching on many, many subjects. But I don't want to talk about that now. I want to set that aside because I think when I finish the Biographia Literaria, I will be filming an entire video just based on that. It's not the wine that's making me stumble. I literally just opened this bottle. I've hardly had a sip. You can see proof for yourself here. It's just me being tired and stumbling here. But I think we'll call it a day here. I hope you're having a great Friday. Do let me know if you read any of these books in the comments below, and let me know what you're reading this coming week as well.